Hello. The Berlin Wall came down on the 9th of November 1989, and at 10 o'clock that night thousands of East Germans started climbing over the wall, and a wave of emotion swept over Germany, with families and friends being united after 30 years of separation. In that time there was a Cold War taking place where at any moment each side thought that the other side was going to get ready to activate an atomic bomb. On the one hand, you had East Germany, which was a communist state, heavily supported by the Soviet Union, and on the other side, the free world, embodied by the USA and mainly its allies. Since 1949, the four Allied powers, which were Russia, the USA, France, and England, had been active controlling different parts of East Berlin, but the city of Berlin had been divided into two since 1961, on the 21st of August. The wall had been built by the communist authorities of East Germany, the German Democratic Republic, to keep people in. In Leipzig in the mid-1980s, a prayer group started in a church there, and this movement was pivotal in gaining support all over East Germany, holding rallies for freedom and culminating in one huge rally at the Alexanderplatz in East Berlin on the 4th of November 1989, just 5 days before the wall came down. There were 500,000 people there. When the wall came down, everybody in the whole nation, West and East Germany, were crying. And this wave of emotion swept over the land, and it lasted for days, if not weeks. People just burst into tears spontaneously. And in East Germany, people were running and jumping over the wall like lambs in the springtime. It was a beautiful thing to see. West Germans were going there chipping pieces off the wall and keeping them as souvenirs, as well as East Germans. And the people who came into West Germany were welcomed by the West German nation and really made to feel at home. Helmut Kohl, who was the Bundeskanzler, the German Chancellor, who was like the president at the time, arranged a huge amount of benefits and opportunities for the East Germans so that they could stay in West Germany and work, and all sorts of financial help was organized. Finally, after many contracts and declarations were made, on the 3rd of October 1990, the reunification of Germany was officially sanctioned and an annual public holiday on that day declared. Needless to say, events pioneered by the unification movement were contributory to this event. A student-led rally in Berlin in 1986, organised by German Carp, was just one of these factors. Carlo's testimony is about this rally and his experience of events that took place at the time. I myself was also there in the march to the wall, following closely behind the eldest son, Hyojinim, of Father Moon. The activities of the German Autonomen, which is what they call the undesirables or the anarchists, these were very violent people. They were throwing bricks, they were chucking paint over people from a bridge, a railway bridge, and they were very violent. And these people we were being protected by the police from their activities and their attacks. Also, we had a team from Korea who were martial arts experts with a large drum doing very powerful presentations in the street, smashing things up and generally creating a counter-attack of activities. So police presence was huge. They protected us from the bricks that were being thrown. And our own security team, of which Carlo, as well as my own husband, who were members of this team, somehow managed to foil a potential bomb attack in one of the meeting halls. So please join me now in watching this exciting video and hearing about Carlo's experiences and face the fear.
First built 13th August 1961. Cost of completed barrier 20 million marks. Length through Berlin 103 miles. Total length 870 miles. Number of day and night guards 10,000. Number of guards who have escaped over the wall 3,000. Number of people arrested while trying to escape 1,000. Number of people killed trying to escape over 100. Causes of death machine gun.
your fist, but keep it hid, 'cause someone right behind's gonna see what you did, and they'll tell the KGB will get you and then ask you your name. Oh no, your money's not right. Welcome to the new home for the criminally insane. The wall is big and strong, heavy and thick, about 100 miles long, and it's built out of communist pride. A big tank trap's gonna keep you inside. Hey, hey,
In August 1961, in the middle of the night, barbed wire was put across the border between East and West Germany, and soon after that, the wall began to develop and was built over 97 miles, 3.5 meters high. An enormous display of power, of force, and an ominous sight, really a threatening aspect within the city of Berlin. When we arrived, we knew that there was a tension that was not resolved since the end of the Second World War. So the Cold War was in the middle of its strength. 1987, it was a very special year for the unification movement. It was the year when the convention of the Carp would take place in Berlin. Carp is the Collegiate Association for Research into Principle, which brings together students and young people for a common vision of creating a better world. And the convention was planned to have about 2,000 participants. Our mobile team had been traveling for a few months before all around Europe, visiting most European countries. And so we can prepare the way and introduce the convention to everybody. By the time we arrived in Berlin, there was a lot of excitement. Even before arriving there, we were told that there was a group of people against our movement, against the convention. They were called Autonome. Although they were from Berlin, they actually had a communist agenda, and they were determined to stop the convention in every possible way. So I was apprehensive before going there. But in my team, everybody was very excited about it. Already from the first day, we heard that some of the cars of other teams had been attacked. Tires were slashed. And members in the street were being pushed and attacked, and leaflets being thrown away. I wasn't really happy about it. I felt very uncomfortable. In fact, even within our team at some point, one sister had moved out of a group where we were working together, and she was attacked. Someone took all the leaflets and threw them away. We had to use a special strategy to go there, a minibus. We would travel in a zigzag way, going around in different directions so nobody could tell where we came from, and parked far away. We had persecution from everywhere. The media came up with very, very negative articles about our movement. and the danger it would pose to society. Churches were preaching clearly that we were bad, the Antichrist. To everybody, we were portrayed as some kind of dangerous group. We were aware of that, but we've been used to all kinds of persecution. We knew that's been Reverend Moon's course in his life, to be persecuted unjustly. So we continued. But now the persecution was becoming more physical, and our own members being attacked became quite a serious issue. I particularly was worried. So I remember in the mornings, ready to go out, I wasn't ready at all. My stomach was completely upside down. I don't know. I think the reason was I was scared. That's it. Totally scared. I just don't like being attacked by anybody. To make it worse, all the members in my team would come up to me. Are we going out this morning? Are we going out into the streets? As a leader of the team, I had to keep a certain face. I had to keep a certain dignity. And of course I would say, of course, are you ready? Huh? Are you ready for a great day? And inside I thought, oh no, why don't I stay home? Can I run an excuse to stay home or to go back to England even? But it was actually the members of my team that really were pushing me. And so every day we went, again dodging the attackers by driving the van in different directions and parking in completely different places every time. And I know that when he came back to the house in the evening, I particularly was ready to kiss the doorstep in gratitude to God for having made it alive. It was such atmosphere all around. Not only that, but the venues that had been booked for the big convention, one big theater, they cancelled. They decided they don't want us around. Why? Because they were influenced by the media articles against us. And one venue cancelled, and then we find another one. When the second one cancelled, I know the leader of our team, the leader of all the convention activities, had a meeting, special meeting for everybody, and said, we are really in a desperate situation. All the venues are cancelling the event. What shall we do? He was really desperate. I remember later going to his room and saying, we can do it. We can do the rally in the street, in the park, anywhere. No one can really stop us, I said with a conviction. The only problem was trying to get out to the streets in the morning for me was a real problem. But there was especially among this autonormed, that was the name of the group that was persecuting us. They were really rough people, and one of them was the most dangerous looking of the lot. He had a leather jacket with the studs coming out of it, and was carrying all the time some kind of a leather belt that was pulling across his wrists all the time and playing with it. And of course, I was afraid to come near any of these people, so I spent my time trying to talk to nice students, a glass-wearing students, innocent-looking, peaceful, or girls. I felt, I don't want to get into unnecessary risks. And even coming home in the evening wasn't just a relief from the pressure, because they somehow discovered our house, this large house in the outskirts of Berlin. And they threw paper bombs I remember one evening we were sitting for dinner after a heavy day of activity, and one of our brothers, who was the security guard, who had a whistle and was pacing all the time up and down the house for security. And so in the middle of our dinner, he ran through the room, whistling, blowing his whistle. We had enough heavy day, and we didn't have enough energy to get up or do anything about it. Plus, what can you do? Run out of the house? Go upstairs? Well, there is no escape, so we just carry on having our dinner. And a few moments later, an explosion of a paper bomb outside the house. And I noticed that nobody really moved too much. We would carry on with our dinner. I had to deal with my own fears, and so I always try to avoid any trouble. And we knew that some people had been pushed, there had been some physical attacks. The one good thing was the police was on our side. But even so, I tried to keep a very quiet position. Then one day in the big square, Kudamm is one of the largest squares in Berlin, where we were gathered in the meeting with many people there. I heard some commotion and a lot of people running to a place, to a point, and eventually a circle was made, and in the middle of the circle there was one of our members surrounded by this autonome, and his only defense was to call out loud passages from the scriptures. And of course he was in danger, and other members of our group went over to help, and I saw a good number of them going there, which made me think that's enough of support for the poor guy. He doesn't need me, so I'm sure they will take care of the situation. And then the head of the operation came to me and said, "Carlo, why don't you go in there?" I laugh now because it created such a shock in my mind. The question echoed in my mind for a few seconds. Why don't I go there? I knew very well why I didn't want to go there. But then, as he asked me the question, another realization came to me. I was there representing the principle of love and truth and God, and at some point I realized I was afraid of some leather-clad thugs. And they was totally against the very principle of the universe. And I felt ashamed of myself for a moment that I've been scared until now of those people. And that internal reaction caused me to create a different kind of attitude. I walked straight to the place. I walked right in between the people, right in the middle of that circle. And this time I was honestly furious against these people who have threatened our activity for no reason. And I went to face them. I started with one, and I remember looking at him in obvious disgust from head to toe and thinking to myself, how could I have been scared of these people? And I went to the next. And as I moved around to each one of them, they all moved back a step, feeling threatened by me. And when I reached one guy with his sunglasses with the mirror. Now, I don't like mirror glasses because they hide the eyes and hide the expression. And I spoke my heart to the guy and said, "Look, I come from England, a peaceful place where people walk around the streets with no danger. And I come here to proclaim peace, harmony, and unity. And we are being persecuted by everybody and by your guys, by yourselves. What am I going to do? I think my desperation provoked a reaction in the guy. He took off his glasses and looked at me. He had beautiful blue eyes. And he said with a smile, "You keep on going." Thank you, I thought to myself. That's what I wanted to hear. And then I really kept on going. And this time, as the circle disbanded, I went around searching for the most dangerous people in the area, not more young students or girls. No, I want to meet the thugs and ask them face to face, what have I done to you that you persecute me? And as I was looking around, I saw the dangerous guy that had been putting fear in my heart until then. And I thought, this is the right person to talk to. So I went towards him, and he saw me coming towards him. He turned around and walked the other way. Well, I followed him. And as he saw me following him, he walked faster away. And I thought, no, you cannot get away from me. I want to talk to you. And so I walked even faster to chase him, but he saw me and started running. Oh, what can I do? The guy has run away. I cannot do anything. He decided to give up. And I realized, actually, that I had lost one of the greatest fears in my heart, built inside my mind by myself. So we were like in a war. And we had all kinds of strategies. On our side, there was a team of martial art champions wearing the white outfits with black belts. And they were doing special demonstrations in different parts of the city. Among that demonstration, there was the breaking of 3 big logs of ice. And the man would come, and with his elbow, he would just crack the blocks of ice. During these demonstrations, surrounded, of course, by a crowd of spectators, also the autonomes were there, these rebels, and they were watching with interest the whole thing. And I could remember seeing the face of one of them when the elbow cracked the ice to pieces, and the man felt as if someone had cracked him. He realized that these martial art guys were on our side, and it was a good way to convince them not to get too familiar with us or aggressive. And it did the job, because they kept quite away when we had the demonstrations. The whole demonstration was led by the song, "The Eye of the Tiger." And so every time I hear that song, I feel the same atmosphere of action. We were very inspired by this martial art athletes, I would say. So we were persecuted by the television, by the radio. It was an incredible time. The only thing that really kept us going was the example that Reverend Moon had given us. He really faced incredible persecution, imprisoned, torture. But he kept going with a clear vision that he wanted to accomplish the will of God. So the main purpose of the Carp Convention in Berlin was to take down the wall, the Berlin Wall. Die Mauer muss weg, that was the big title of the convention. And for that, there were preparations, there were all kinds of rallies we were planning to do outside the Berlin Wall.
1987 was a very long time ago, but my memories of the Berlin Carp Convention are very fresh in my mind, as many other people who may be listening to this message, because there were a lot of us there, and it was a very memorable occasion. When I arrived, which was sometime after Carlo, before the convention, so that we could help, we were given a bit of a briefing about how to take care of ourselves. And one of the things we were told was, don't stay after demonstration or a rally or anything that's fixed that the police have been invited to protect us at, that we should quickly disperse and get back to our base as quickly as possible. So I heeded that warning. And so there was one very small rally that I was at with just a group of maybe a dozen or 20 people, and we did our thing. We sang and we shouted and we said whatever we needed to say and gave out leaflets, and all was going well. And it came to an end, and I thought, okay, now I know what I have to do. Head for the underground, the U-Bahn, and as quickly as possible, as everyone else was doing. But then I noticed on the other side of this square, a very special person who I had great respect for and still do, Wonpil Kim. Wonpil Kim, one of the first 3 disciples of Reverend Moon, who in my mind is a very wonderful person. And so there he was, engaging in conversation with these not very nice-looking people, gentlemen who were dressed very roughly and who were obviously our opposition. And I was worried for his safety, and I wondered why in the world he didn't make haste to get out like me. And I looked more closely and I waited to see if I should do something about it. And I could see that these people who looked so rough were actually having a very deep conversation with him and listening to what he had to say. And they were definitely not going to hurt him. And I was so impressed with his attitude, which was so different from mine. I felt very silly, just being afraid, when actually this was an opportunity to show the love of God, which is after all why we were there, and to love everyone, not just the nice people or the people who were kind to us, but to love everyone. And as Jesus said, love your enemies and pray for those that persecute you. So I really had something to learn from that situation, and that's why I've never forgotten it. So then one other thing we did while we were in Berlin, we had a chance to visit Checkpoint Charlie's museum, a museum which was making a historical memory of all the different ways in which people had tried to escape the war in one way or another. As you know, many died in the process. It was a terrifying thing to take on. Danger of being shot at sight was there, but people still tried at the risk of their lives and did amazing things. One of the things that impressed me was a balloon made out of bits of plastic raincoat and other bits of plastic, which must have taken a long time to make secretly, but which actually successfully went over the wall and was safely landed on the other side, saving those people and bringing them into freedom. Another thing was a car which had been altered in order to smuggle people in a secret tank inside, and several people had been taken safely across the border in that car. Amazing. Coming from the Western world and never experiencing anything like that was very shocking to me, to try to comprehend what people must feel and how desperate they must be to escape this situation where they had lost their freedom and were looking forward to the freedom of being in the other side of Berlin, where maybe they had relatives and certainly friends. And maybe that's one of the reasons that Wonpil Kim, being a Korean, could deeply understand the situation, having experienced the separation of North and South Korea and the misery it caused to families who were separated, never to be able to see each other again. That would be something which was part of his upbringing and part of his life to know and feel and understand. So he well knew how dreadful such divisions can be. The day of the march to the Berlin Wall was a very, very special day. All the various groups gathered, and in a well-organized march on a beautiful sunny day, feeling very powerful and very strong and very determined and very united across all our different European nationalities, with one thing in mind: to declare Die Mauer muss weg. And we were protected on both sides, flanked on both sides of our walk through the streets by riot police in all their gear, with their helmets and their shields and guns. And I noticed as I looked at them that some of them were women, and they looked quite scary, actually. So it was quite a contrast to look at them and to look at the faces of those with me on the march. It was a very strange circumstance. Anyway, eventually we all arrived and gathered at a point at the wall where there was a lorry, and on the lorry was a band with speakers and a loudspeaker, microphones and the rest, to give speeches and sing together and make a declaration. And it was fantastic, a really fantastic moment. I really felt in that moment that surely this wall at some point is going to crack.
Before the convention started, it was planned a big march of all the people of the Carp Convention to the wall, and the final speech would be given there. And as we did, we were still surrounded by very noisy autonome, the thugs that were following us. When we arrived, the head of the Carp, the son of Reverend Wood, he gave a most powerful speech, and he invited everybody to unite with the purpose of unity and peace, and he declared, "Gorbachev, take down the wall." We were only a few meters from the wall. We all felt his determination and the fire of his intention. We were constantly jeered and with noises from the autonome. But then he said, "Let's all go to the wall and pray for unity and peace." So we all went and put our hands on the wall and started to pray loud, a loud prayer, to which the rest of the opponents, they stopped the noises, and you could only hear the prayers. And then when the prayer finished, the jeers came back again. But we felt we made a condition. And we know that there was an important part of our mission to declare to the world, to the universe, and to God that we wanted to have the wall come down. Finally, the day of the convention had come. This time the venue that we had booked had kept the promise, and we were ready to go ahead. On the day, the police was on our side protecting our operation. The convention had 3 major entrances, and one from the underground. I walked into the event hall just before, and I saw something that worried me, and I told one of the organizers, I said, I saw some very dangerous looking people there, very rough looking people. How come they're in? And they told me, this is police undercover. So already police had been prepared to be inside the place to prevent any negative actions. Eventually they needed someone to man one of the main entrances, the one from the underground station. I personally offered. We had to check that people coming in were actually regular official guests with regular tickets. Some people had even printed copies of the tickets and tried to infiltrate. So I was there at the entrance together with a policeman and a good machine gun. So I felt very protected at the time. He was there to really support me if there was any confrontation with the visitors. And the fact that I knew most of the members in Europe, partly because I traveled throughout most of the countries in Europe. So I could tell whoever came in, and could recognize if he's our member or not. And I remember somebody came and the ticket they were bringing, it didn't look good to me. In fact, I realized it was a photocopy. So then I pretended to make a phone call. I said, let me just check with the office. And I pretended that the ticket hadn't been registered, so he wasn't allowed in. He started to protest, but the presence of the machine gun in the hands of the police was a very convincing factor. And quite a few people actually tried to get in by surprise. And so I only allowed in our members that I knew. So the convention went in beautifully and successfully. And there was a great testimony to the power of faith and the power of perseverance that everybody manifested. Actually, as a strange angle of events, I never saw the convention because I stood at the entrance all the time, but they told me it was good, and for me that was most important. It was successful. We have to thank God that not only the convention concluded victoriously, and luckily nobody was hurt in the process, even though car tires were slashed. One coach from Italy was burned to smithereens. Still, we know that 2 years later, the wall actually did come down. And we felt that with all our efforts, somehow the condition was made for such thing to happen. That was a very special time. And although I can say that we enjoyed the experience, it was also full of challenges and a lot of lessons. One main lesson was to never be controlled by fears, but go and face your fears so they don't control you. And for me, that was the most beautiful lesson. Plus to see how God had been working all the time, and we truly represented a final step in history, while God was trying to bring unity to the world, and particularly in Berlin and Europe. For this, I'm very grateful for that experience. And I'm glad that Barbara was there so that we could experience the same thing together.
So I hope you've enjoyed listening to our testimony, and we look forward to listening to yours. God bless you.
Goodbye.
So that's the end of another exciting testimony from Carlo, and we'd now like to invite you to join us on a special question and answer session with Zoom. And the link is posted here, and we'd like you to join us straight away. Please log in, and we'll be able to discuss and share our testimonies and our experiences together. And any questions you have, you can ask Carlo directly, and he will be there on the Zoom call. So thank you for watching, and thank you for contributing. And if you were involved in that carp rally, please join us and share your own personal experiences. Thank you for watching this. Good night.